we are going to talk about neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain to form new connections of nerve cells. It means that the brain has the ability to change its structure and function. So whatever we do every day becomes what our brain gets used to, and it becomes more stronger and stronger. But what is the mechanism behind neuroplasticity? From what we see here, this is a neuron and this is also a neuron. What you see inside is called the action potential. So it is obvious that you have more action potentials here and you also have lesser action potentials here. The more action potential you have here, we call it potentiation. And because you have lesser action potentials here, we call it depression. But why do we have more action potentials here and have lesser action potentials here? It means that the more we use the more we perform a particular function, the more action potential are sent through a neuron. So if you have more action potentials here, you have more neurotransmitters that are released into the synaptic cleft. And if you have more neurotransmitters released into the synaptic cleft, you will also in turn have more neurotransmitter receptors to receive the neurotransmitters. So the lesser action potential you have here, the lesser neurotransmitters you have here, you have in the synaptic cleft, and the lesser neurotransmitter receptors that you also have. So then let us take, for example, this is patient A and this is patient B. Both patients had stroke. This patient become more physically active. It means that for the affected limb or for the affected part of the body, they try to use it more and more. So the more they use it, the more action potential that are sent through the neurons that are still alive. So the more action potential sent, the more neurotransmitters sent. So the response for this neuron, if this patient become more physically active, this neuron form stronger connection with the next neuron. So the tree or the dendrites, these small branches are known as the dendrites. So the more action potentials that are fired through this neuron, the more it forms new connections of dendrites with this neuron. But for example, let us assume that after the stroke incident, after stroke, this neuron becomes dead. This neuron becomes dead. It means that this neuron, this particular neuron, will no longer have connection with the dead neuron again. But the more action of movement that patient performed, this neuron will now adapt itself or change itself and connect with the next neuron. So instead of connecting with that dead neuron, this neuron will connect with another new neuron. So that is what happens. And this patient, once they continue to perform that action, they are able to regain the function again. They reconnect new cells. But this is patient B that also has stroke. This patient is not physically active. Let us assume that they are at home, not really performing enough function. You will have lesser action potentials that are traveling through the neuron. Meanwhile, I needed to tell you that action potentials are electrical signals that travels through the neurons. They are electrical signals that travel through the neuron. So if this patient is not physically active, you will have lesser action potentials and lesser neurotransmitters, and also lesser number of neurotransmitter receptors. So the response, this neuron is not firing enough action potentials. The connection with the next neuron will be lesser. And sometimes, if this neuron is not even firing at all, it becomes dormant. It no longer have good connection with the next neuron, and we call that pruning. So the neuron have lesser connection. So it means that whatever we do all the time, our brain gets used to it, gets stronger, and also have more connection with the next neuron. So for example, you start training for football. On the first day, you do not really have enough skill or endurance to play football. But the more you perform that action, the stronger you become in that action. The more your brain recognizes that action. The lesser you perform the action, the lesser the connections between neurons in your brain. So you'll not be able to develop that skill very well. It means that whatever we do always, that is what our brain recognizes. If it is reading, if you always read, you will get used to reading and even addicted to reading to the extent that you will enjoy reading. If you do not read at all, the neurons in your brain also recognize that action, that it is not that much. So whatever action you perform always, that is what becomes stronger in your brain.